Recently, there has been a growing wave of anti-CCP sentiment worldwide. Let's start with the latest updates from the United States. On March 14, 2025, U.S. Congressman Riley Moore introduced a bill proposing a complete ban on student visas for Chinese citizens. He argued that this measure is necessary to prevent the CCP from using Chinese students to steal American technology and academic secrets. Moore stated that around 300,000 Chinese citizens enter the U.S. each year on student visas, and the CCP could be using this as a way to spy on the U.S. military, steal intellectual property, and threaten national security. He gave an example from last year when the FBI charged 5 Chinese students with espionage. They were accused of secretly filming joint U.S.-Taiwan military exercises and conducting surveillance activities on a National Guard base in Michigan. This case is one of several recent investigations into the CCP's influence in the U.S. Experts say it highlights Beijing's strategy of using trusted political insiders to infiltrate different levels of the U.S. government. At the same time, a newly released U.S. State Department document has set the tone for Washington's approach to distinguishing the CCP from the Chinese people. Moore emphasized that immediately banning all Chinese citizens from obtaining student visas is crucial for protecting U.S. national security, technological innovation, critical infrastructure, and personal information. Meanwhile, the recent bribery case involving Linda Sun, a former aide to the governor of New York, has further strengthened U.S. efforts to counter CCP influence. Prosecutors revealed details about a pay-to-play scheme exposing how Sun accepted $15.6 million in bribes. In 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice charged Sun and her husband, Chris Hu, with using their connections to 2 New York governors to benefit the CCP. This included influencing policies related to Taiwan and Xinjiang in exchange for millions of dollars in kickbacks. Additionally, Sun's parents received direct benefits from Huang Ping, the Chinese consul general. According to the latest court documents, Sun funneled her illegal earnings into her husband's lobster export business, generating at least $15.67 million for the couple. The Wall Street Journal reported that these funds came from China and that business profited significantly from Sun's work on behalf of the Chinese government. Sun faces charges for illegally acting as a foreign agent, while he is accused of financial crimes, including conspiracy to launder money. The case involving Linda Sun is one of several recent investigations into the CCP's influence in the U.S. Experts say it highlights Beijing's broad strategy of using trusted political insiders to infiltrate various levels of the American government. Meanwhile, a newly released U.S. State Department document has reinforced Washington's approach of distinguishing the CCP from China as a whole. This policy shift sets the tone for treating the CCP government, not the Chinese people, as a strategic competitor. According to an internal memo obtained by Voice of America, the State Department has formally directed U.S. diplomats to separate the Chinese Communist Party from the people of China. Secretary of State Marco Rubio instructed staff to avoid using the term Chinese in ways that could be seen as negative towards Chinese people, culture, or language. Instead, they should use more specific terms and refer to the Chinese government as the CCP to emphasize its control over political, economic, and military affairs. The document also advises against using the word Chinese when describing malicious activities to avoid implying that the Chinese public is responsible. Additionally, it states that Xi Jinping should be referred to as General Secretary rather than President to underscore the party's dominance over the government. This aligns with the approach taken by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The State Department's website has also updated its terminology, simplifying People's Republic of China to China, and emphasizing a policy based on reciprocity and fairness, moving away from the Biden administration's previous framework of invest, align, and compete. Analysts believe this is more than just a language adjustment. It reflects a long-term shift in U.S. strategy towards China. Instead of a broad confrontation with China as a whole, the focus is now on directly targeting the CCP. Rubio's directive reinforces this approach, signaling that Trump's administration might not only impose higher tariffs on China, but also escalate ideological and geopolitical confrontations with the CCP. Now, let's turn to Africa. In March 2025, the military government of Niger ordered 3 executives from Chinese oil companies to leave the country within 48 hours and shut down a Chinese-owned hotel. This move has drawn international attention, coming at a time when opposition to the CCP is growing nationwide. According to Reuters, the three executives were from China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, West African Oil Pipeline Company, WAPCO, and Zinder Refinery. WAPCO operates crude oil pipelines under CNPC, while Soraz is a CNPC subsidiary focused on refining. The executives were accused of violating labor laws, exploiting workers, and ignoring local supplier quotas. Local activist Ibrahim Bana said that Chinese executives ignored a law passed in August 2024, which was designed to ensure that Nigerians benefit from the country's national wealth. He also pointed out that these executives earn 3 to 4 times more than their Nigerian counterparts and refuse to prioritize local service providers. At the same time, Niger's Ministry of Tourism revoked the business license of Niamey Sunshine International Hotel, owned by China Huayou Group. The 4-star hotel, which opened in 2015 in the capital, has 73 rooms and primarily hosted employees from CNPC, Soraz, and WAPCO. It was accused of barring non-Chinese nationals from entering, sparking local outrage over alleged discrimination. The government charged the hotel with discriminatory practices, abuse of restrictions, and tax fraud. Analysts see this incident as a reflection of Niger's dissatisfaction with China's economic dominance. As a participant in China's Belt and Road Initiative, Niger has long relied on Chinese oil investments. Last year, Niger signed a $400 million crude oil sale agreement with CNPC, but many locals believe China took most of the profits while neglecting labor rights. The hotel's exclusionary policies further fueled public anger. This is not the first time African nations have taken action against Chinese interests. Looking to East Africa, the anti-Chinese riots in Mozambique around Christmas 2024 were even more dramatic. Protesters seized an armored vehicle originally provided by the CCP for maintaining stability and used it to smash into Chinese-owned stores. A 2-story metal security gate collapsed with a loud crash, followed by screams and curses as rioters swarmed inside. They looted everything they could carry: bags of rice, televisions, sound systems. They wiped out millions of yuan in inventory within hours. Looting wasn't enough. They set the stores on fire, with thick black smoke spreading across the city. Images of burning buildings spread rapidly on social media. Even state-backed projects like the China-Mozambique Agricultural Technology Center were targeted, denounced by protesters as symbols of corrupt deals, and set ablaze. Compared to Niger's official expulsion of Chinese executives, the riots in Mozambique were more spontaneous, driven by public anger. However, both incidents reveal a stark reality. Africa's attitude toward the CCP is shifting from economic cooperation to open hostility. At the core of this unrest is the deep resentment over China's collusion with local governments and its disregard for ordinary people's interests, which has been brewing for years and finally erupted into conflict. Some online comments lamented, "The CCP has turned overseas Chinese into public enemies." The backlash in Africa is just one part of a growing global trend. For years, the CCP has used Belt and Road projects to expand its influence across Asia, Africa, and even Western countries. This has led to accusations of economic exploitation, political infiltration, and the export of authoritarian ideology. The CCP has also been accused of dumping subsidized goods into foreign markets and engaging in espionage and technology theft. These actions have triggered increasing resistance worldwide. As 2025 progresses, more countries are taking stronger measures against China and its people. Now, let's take a look at the latest developments in the UK. On March 15, 2025, over 5,000 protesters gathered outside the Royal Mint Court in London to oppose the Chinese government's plan to build a so-called super embassy at the site. This was the second major protest against the project, following a demonstration by 4,000 people on February 8th, highlighting continued public opposition. Protesters included Hong Kongers, Tibetans, Uyghurs, local residents, and human rights groups. They held signs and chanted slogans like "Reject CCP surveillance" and "Protect UK security." Several British members of Parliament also joined to show support. The proposed super embassy would be 10 times the size of China's current embassy and is located near Tower Bridge in a prime area of London. Demonstrators argue that if completed, it would become the largest Chinese diplomatic facility overseas and serve as a hub for surveillance and espionage in Europe. UK Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner stated that a decision on whether to approve the project will be made by May, following a public hearing. The U.S. House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party has also raised concerns, calling the embassy plan a significant security threat and urging urgent action. Meanwhile, on March 15th, protests against the CCP also took place in the Netherlands. Tibetans, Uyghurs, and human rights groups led a large-scale demonstration at The Hague, chanting slogans like "Resist CCP tyranny, defend religious freedom." The march drew widespread attention. Belgium has also taken action. On March 13th, Belgian police raided Huawei's Brussels office at the European Union headquarters. A spokesperson for the Belgian prosecutor's office stated that the raid was part of an investigation into a cash for influence scheme. Intelligence agencies are looking into allegations of corruption, document forgery, and money laundering linked to the European Parliament, with Chinese technology company Huawei as a key target. The federal prosecutor's office revealed that suspects were involved in falsification activities and formed a criminal organization under the guise of lobbying. The alleged crimes include paying EU politicians for political statements, offering excessive gifts such as expensive meals and travel, and frequently inviting officials to football games to sway EU policies in favor of commercial interests. The investigation traces these activities back to 2021. At the same time, Portuguese authorities conducted a related raid, marking a shift in Europe's response to CCP influence. Looking at the broader picture, these operations in Belgium and Portugal signal Europe's collective awakening to CCP infiltration. In contrast with the US, which has long taken a firm stance against Huawei, Europe has struggled to balance economic ties with security concerns. However, as CCP influence expands from business to politics, EU nations are now responding in a more coordinated manner. This could be a turning point, pushing the EU toward a unified anti-infiltration strategy to counter the CCP's growing influence. Meanwhile, Taiwan, at the front line of global resistance against the CCP, has also taken decisive steps to safeguard national security.
这样的中国，已是我国反渗透法所定义的境外敌对势力。
On March 13th, President Lai Ching-te convened a high-level national security meeting, officially designating the CCP as a hostile foreign force and warning of its escalating influence operations against Taiwan. He announced several counter-infiltration measures, including restoring military trials, tightening scrutiny on Chinese visitors to Taiwan, and restricting entry for individuals with links to the CCP's influence campaigns. The meeting specifically addressed Beijing's integration and development policy, which seeks to lure Taiwanese people to relocate to China with benefits, thereby undermining Taiwan's sovereignty. In response, the government has ordered a full review of existing laws and the establishment of new defense mechanisms to reduce the risks associated with cross-strait exchanges. At the same time, Taiwan has taken firm action against certain Chinese spouses. A woman surnamed Liu, who ran a social media account under the name Yaya in Taiwan, was found promoting the CCP's narrative on forcibly unifying Taiwan. As a result, Taiwan's immigration authorities revoked her visa and deported her, demonstrating the government's zero-tolerance policies towards CCP-affiliated online propaganda and influence operations. Additionally, the government plans to investigate Taiwanese celebrities who have shared CCP propaganda. Authorities intend to issue warnings about their statements in China, aiming to counter the effects of cognitive and legal warfare on the public. In February, Taiwan launched a special screening and awareness campaign targeting active military personnel, civil servants, and educators. The investigation seeks to identify individuals who illegally hold Chinese residency or identity documents. The Mainland Affairs Council noted that the CCP has been deliberately allowing Taiwanese citizens to register for household residency in China while retaining their Taiwanese identification, attempting to blur national identity and disrupt legal order. The screening has already uncovered government employees with Chinese-issued documents. In response, the government is encouraging voluntary disclosure and renunciation of such identities. Officials emphasize that military personnel, civil servants, and educators cannot hold dual nationality or pledge allegiance to the CCP, warning that violators will lose their positions. From 2014 to the end of 2023, 676 individuals had their Taiwanese household registration revoked due to dual identity issues. The current review focuses on core personnel in the public sector, with plans to expand to other government positions and establish a long-term monitoring system. The Mainland Affairs Council stated that these measures are a response to the CCP's escalating infiltration efforts, including its disruption of Taiwan's single household registration system established in 2004, and its use of government employees and celebrities for political influence campaigns. The goal is to safeguard Taiwan's social stability and national identity from CCP influence. Polls indicate that over 70% of the public supports these investigations and awareness efforts, reflecting widespread consensus against CCP infiltration. Taiwan's actions are not just about national security, but also about preserving democratic order, showcasing the shared determination of the government and citizens to protect sovereignty. As democratic nations push back against the CCP, even Russia, once described as China's unbreakable and limitless partner, has taken a series of actions that suggest a shift in its stance. Reports from January indicate that Russia has begun imposing strict inspections on China-Europe freight trains passing through its territory. Cargo shipments from China were either held up entirely or subjected to heavy fines, forcing businesses to either pay significant penalties or forfeit their goods. Additionally, Russia has recently placed new restrictions on Chinese automobile imports. This includes a sharp increase in the recycling fee for imported cars, effectively creating a hidden tariff barrier against Chinese vehicles. Russia also revoked certification for a heavy-duty truck model from Shanxi Automobile Group, temporarily halting its sales in the country. Meanwhile, Russian media have been increasingly critical of Chinese car quality, signaling a broader effort to limit Chinese vehicles from entering the Russian market. These developments suggest that under a new Trump administration, the Russia-China relationship could shift from limitless cooperation to a more pragmatic geopolitical and economic competition. Beyond Russia, Vietnam, one of China's last remaining neighbors with close ties, has also taken a series of strong measures against the CCP. On February 21st, Vietnam's Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a new baseline map of the Gulf of Tonkin, significantly extending its maritime boundaries. This move was a direct response to the CCP's unilateral expansion of the same baseline in March last year. At the time, China extended its territorial waters by 20 to 50 nautical miles into international waters. Vietnam's latest action delivers a direct blow to China's expansionist claims. At the same time, Vietnam has also launched economic countermeasures. On February 21st, the Ministry of Industry and Trade announced an anti-dumping tariff of up to 27.83% on Chinese hot-rolled steel coils, effective from March 7th for 120 days. This move serves a dual purpose, reducing dependence on Chinese steel and signaling alignment with the U.S. to avoid being labeled a transshipment country for Chinese goods. On the South China Sea front, Vietnam has been steadily strengthening its position. While China has been preoccupied with tensions involving the U.S. and the Philippines, Vietnam has been quietly accelerating its island-building efforts in recent years. Currently, Vietnam controls 29 features in the Spratly Islands, more than China does. It has expanded 10 reefs that overlap with Chinese-claimed waters. Ba Binh, Itu-Iba Reef, stands out in particular. Satellite imagery from November 2023 showed that Vietnam had transformed it from a small atoll into solid land, with a deep water port capable of accommodating warships over 10,000 tons. After To Lam took office as Vietnam's new leader in August 2024, land reclamation efforts intensified, expanding Ba Binh Reef to 1.67 square kilometers, making it Vietnam's largest military outpost in the Spratlys. Vietnam's military presence in the South China Sea doesn't stop there. It has constructed airstrips capable of hosting fighter jets on 3 key islands, Nam Yet Island, Southwest Cay, and Ba Binh Reef, forming an initial network of military bases in the region. Previously, China attempted to win over Vietnam with economic incentives, such as facilitating transshipment trade through Guangdong and offering financial benefits, hoping Vietnam would restrain its actions in the South China Sea. However, Vietnam has pressed ahead with its expansion, underscoring its determination to counter CCP influence and territorial encroachment. These developments indicate that Vietnam is challenging China on multiple fronts, from the territorial dispute in the Gulf of Tonkin to its military expansion in the Spratlys. The so-called friendship between China and Vietnam is facing unprecedented strain, and Vietnam's assertive stance could further shift the power balance in the South China Sea. Looking at the bigger picture, from Mozambique's anti-China riots to Niger's expulsion orders, to the tightening policies in the West, Vietnam shift, and even Russia's surprising restrictions on Chinese trade, it's evident that global resistance to the CCP is intensifying. This widespread pushback reflects growing frustration with China's economic dominance, political infiltration, and authoritarian influence. As the anti-CCP wave continues to surge, the regime's future appears increasingly uncertain.